Welcome everyone to tonight's District 5 United meeting. Tonight we have Airport and Roads Director Harry Freitas with Santa Clara County, who will be providing an update regarding Reid-Hillview Airport. I'll go ahead and hand it off to Harry now.
Okay, thank you, Juan. Can you hear me then? Okay, great. Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me again. I've spoken to you before. I'll try to go ahead and share my screen just so that I don't have slides or a presentation for today's meeting. I was just going to share this screen so that we can all have a common frame of reference. So you can see this aerial photograph of Reid-Hillview Airport. Is that correct?
Yeah. I do see the map on the screen.
Okay, great. Okay, so since we last met, the county staff has been working on a number of issues at the direction of the Board of Supervisors, broken into a variety of areas. So I think I'll start with the fuel issue. So the Board of Supervisors directed the county to eliminate unleaded fuel sales at Reid-Hillview and at San Martin Airport. So the county is endeavoring to make that happen on January 1st, 2022. That coincides with the expiration of all the leases at the airport, which is going to make it a lot more logical way of approaching kind of taking over the fueling operations. So the county plans to have both airports only selling unleaded fuels as of January 1st, 2022. The Reid-Hillview Airport currently has 3 types of fuel for sale. So right now at Reid-Hillview Airport, 2 of our 4 underground or 2 of our 4 bulk storage tanks have unleaded fuel in them, and 2 of them still have 100 low lead in them. And then the 3rd fuel that's sold at the airport is jet fuel, and that is dispensed via a mobile fueler. That's a tank that's attached to a truck. Jet fuel is unleaded. So 2 of the 3 fuels now being sold at the airport are unleaded. We'd like to thank 2 of our FBOs for being proactive and getting that unleaded fuel, sooner rather than later. As far as South County goes, we're working with our fixed-based operator at South County to get his tank converted at the San Martin Airport also by January 1st. So I mentioned that the leases for the 9 fixed-based operators all expire simultaneously on December 31st, 2021. That's going to allow the county to change the terms of their leases to month to month. So the fixed-based operators at Reid-Hillview Airport are going to convert to a month-to-month operation. This allows the county flexibility should the airport close early. Not all of the fixed-based operators are going to be going into leases. Some of the properties that don't directly offer aviation services by the leaseholder are going to revert to county control, and the county is going to manage the rental of those properties. All of that also will be effective on January 1st. So the fixed-based operators, we have meetings with them this week to give them the terms of their new leases. We've been in communication with them. We're also working on getting the other tenants into their month-to-month rental agreements in the FBO area, which is on your map there. So that's ongoing, and both of those things, like I said, will be effective on January 1st. The county is working on two things on kind of a legal front. One of them is a letter to the FAA for early closure. The timing of that letter is very sensitive, or something that the county council has been working on, and they're working on the specifics of the approach with the FAA and the timing of that. In addition to that, the county is working with let's see, I think it's called it's like a legal nonprofit at Stanford University that they're going to work with to develop the petition to the FAA for the endangerment finding. One of the directions that the Board of Supervisors gave us was to petition the FAA for an endangerment finding around the use of leaded fuels at general aviation airports. Okay. We've also engaged another consultant called Jacobs Engineering, which is a large engineering company that also provides environmental services. They're going to test the soil at both of the county airports. We expect that study to be completed December or January. We just engaged them in the last 2 weeks on getting started with that study. So they'll be taking soil samples on both airports, and we'll be able to see what the condition of the soil looks like. We're negotiating the new fuel contract with a company that provides the unleaded fuel. They're called Swift Fuels. They provide unleaded fuel currently to Watsonville Airport and to San Carlos Airport in kind of the immediate Bay Area. And we'll be purchasing their product. And that is the product that is in 2 of the fuel tanks at Reid-Hillview today. The flight schools, currently 2 of the flight schools have converted to unleaded. Those flight schools are Walt Geiger's Tradewinds. Tradewinds Aviation is now unleaded, and Aerodynamic is unleaded. Yeah, Squadron 2 is still leaded, and so is Nice Air. So 2 of the 4 flight schools at Reid-Hillview have converted all of their aircraft to unleaded operations. So that really is a summary of all the things that we're working on. At this point, I think we can just take questions. I'll turn it back to you, Juan.
All right. Would you mind disabling your screen sharing?
Oh, sure.
We could put it back up depending on the question.
Yeah.
Let me start out by just asking, so I think you said that 2 of the FBOs and 2 of the flight schools have transitioned to unleaded. Is that the same thing? The 2 FBOs are the 2 flight schools, or I'm not familiar with the terminology.
Yeah, I'm sorry about using jargon. FBO refers to, it's an acronym from the FAA that describes a business that offers multiple services to aircraft owners, and one of those services is flight schools. So I guess I should say it, not all FBOs offer flight schools. So I should have maybe said it differently. Among all the tenants at Reid-Hillview Airport, there are 4 flight schools. 2 of the 4 flight schools have converted to unleaded operation.
Got it. And so 2 have not yet.
That's right.
And then let's see. And then you'll be assuming, the county will be assuming responsibility for fueling for how many? I'm trying to make that.
So the county is proposing to become the exclusive fuel seller at Reid-Hillview Airport. So all fuel that's dispensed and sold at the airport Reid-Hillview would have to be sold by the county when the county exercises its proprietary and exclusive rights that the FAA gives all airport owners in the United States.
Got it.
Now that it doesn't necessarily have to coincide with the airport becoming a lead-free operation. So the timing on the proprietary exclusive sales isn't the real prize that we're looking for. The first milestone that we're most interested in is getting the airport to 100% unleaded fuel sales by January 1st. The proprietary and exclusive might come on that same day, or it might come at a period of time later. Once we can get all the tanks tested and certified and transferred, as well as getting the Bay Area air quality permits and the mobile fuelers and the staff to fuel the planes. So that's, both of those things are happening, but the hard deadline is lead-free fuel on January 1st.
And then we're about to go to attendee questions. One last question for you right now is, flight planes that are using unleaded would still be able to land at Reid-Hillview after January 1st? Is that?
Are you saying the planes that use leaded? I think you said on, but are you saying
that use leaded?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, they would.
Okay. All right. So the goal is January 1st, no more sale of leaded fuel. If a plane comes from another area, it could still land and take off.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and go to the audience questions. And audience, I will promote you to panelists so that you could pose your question. And please pose a question. Try to shoot for under a minute to pose that question, because we will have additional questions and we want to get to everybody. And then you will, we'll go on to the next question. And if you have more questions, feel free to pose them through the Q&A feature. And so first up, we will have Henry Jessel. And Henry, feel free to share your audio and video if you'd like. I'll give it just a little bit longer, and then I'll read your question. Okay, here comes Henry.
Hi there. I sent in the questions. I wasn't sure if you wanted to read them off of there, but I guess I just had sort of three overarching questions for clarification. The first one is that question, or is the measure regarding Santa Clara County assuming control over the fuel pumps? Like, does that mean that, I know Aerodynamic and Tradewinds, they have their own trucks to sell fuel, so would those have to discontinue? And then the other question was just, how would you respond to the FAA director? I think it was Director of Pacific Operations. He mentioned that Reid-Hillview's traffic might have some difficulty being absorbed by other Bay Area airports. So I was just wondering what your response was to that. And I think I had a third question. I'm afraid I can't remember it. So if it does come up, I would appreciate an answer to that one as well. Thank you.
Yeah, Henry, in fact, I think I see your third question down here on Nice Air and Squadron 2. So let me take them, let's see, one at a time. So I hadn't seen the Director of Pacific Operations quote. Did you recall what context he made that in, or in what forum, or did you hear that yourself? Or
I'd seen it in an article published by the San Jose Mercury News, as well as one other independent forum. It was sent in a letter to the county, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I have all the letters that the FAA has sent us. Certainly, they have concerns about the airspace as a whole in Northern California, and they've articulated those to us in a letter. I mean, I think that right now the county is focused mostly on the endangerment and the leaded operation issues. I do think that there's probably still some discussions with the FAA on exactly what their concerns are, and those will be coming. I expect that we'll be discussing that at a higher level with the FAA, shortly. So I don't have a really good answer to that. It's a little bit kind of it's kind of premature to guess how that conversation is going to go, because right now the letters are from the FAA. They're mostly focused on the fact that they want the county to continue to take money from the federal government and they've been stressing issues with our airfield and the condition of our airfield. So I think there's more to come on that. The second question I see here, Henry, is have Nice Air and Squadron 2. No, they have not given a timeline on when they will be converting to UL 94. But we've had conversations with both of them, Nice Air and Squadron 2. So we will be continuing that conversation this week. And I believe your third question is escaping me now, Henry. Can you remind me of what your third question was?
Sure. Yeah, so like I know that Tradewinds and Aerodynamic, they have their own sort of like fuel sale operation.
Yes. So yeah, the proprietary and exclusive was a recommendation from staff so that we could have really solid control over the fueling operation. And we did get control of the fuel tank at San Martin through our negotiation for the FBO out there. Although in San Martin, the FBO uses the county-owned fuel tank, and all we collect is the fuel flowage fee. In this case, we're going to exercise that proprietary and exclusive right. So those companies that currently sell fuel will not be allowed to. So if you fly an aircraft, Henry, which I suspect you might, we'll be operating like Watsonville does. Watsonville is the proprietary and exclusive fuel provider at Watsonville Airport. Now, it's possible that some of the flight schools may still have trucks that will be only for fueling their planes, but they will have to buy that fuel from the county, and they may not resell it. They can only use it for the planes that they operate.
All right, next is Jennifer. Jennifer, feel free to share audio and video. I'll give it just a few seconds, and then I'll read your question if you'd rather not share audio and video. I'll go ahead and read the question. The question is, if the airports are both switching to unleaded fuels, why are you petitioning the FAA to close the airport due to hazard?
Because switching the airports to only sell unleaded fuel doesn't eliminate lead from the airports, because there's certain planes that physically cannot use unleaded fuel. It doesn't have a high enough octane right now. It's only 94 octane. So switching to unleaded fuels, we think, is a good way of mitigating the amount of leaded fuel that's sold and consumed at the airports, and hopefully it will convince those aircraft owners that can use unleaded fuel to use unleaded fuel. But the prohibition of the sale of leaded fuel at our airports will not make our airports lead-free.
All right, next is Danny Garza.
Good evening, Harry. How are you?
I'm good, Danny. Thank you.
I had two questions, but you already answered one of them. My other question is, if we can go to your map, the property at the northeast corner that's outside the blue line.
Yeah.
Who owns that? At that like dirt strip right there?
This red area right here?
No, it's outside, right next to Capitol and the corner of Ocala.
Oh, Capitol and Ocala.
Yes.
I'm sorry. This piece here?
Yes. Who owns that?
That is owned by the county.
Okay. Okay, that's what I want to know. See,
I'm not sure that it's exactly airport property. I think it's either airport or expressway. Not that it makes much of a difference. But yeah.
Right. And the reason I'm asking is because if we were going to put an Ocala and Capitol Station there for light rail, that property could be used for the landing steps and elevators rather than putting them in the middle, because that's one of the reasons VTA is saying they don't want to put a stop there. So that's a long story, and I won't go into that here. But
yeah, I've heard a little bit about that, but that land outside that blue line is county land.
Okay, I appreciate it. That's what I had in mind. Thanks.
All right, next up is Roy Holstein. And Sheriff, Harry, if you could stop sharing the screen, that'd be helpful.
Sure.
Roy, I'll go ahead and read your question. Roy says, so those of us that can't use UL 94 need to tanker in the 100 LL. Seems you just want us to leave this place and allow county to complete their agenda of closing Reid-Hillview Airport. Sad.
Well, I mean, I think that if you have been, really, and this is Roy.
Roy.
Yeah, Roy. I mean, I think that the County Board of Supervisors has been really clear on kind of its intentions around the airport. And we wrote a pretty significant, I wrote the staff report along with some other staff members, pretty significant discussion about the fact that certain aircraft would not be able to use UL 94, and that would either require those aircraft to fuel at other airports or potentially to self-fuel. So yeah, it's not going to make it convenient to burn leaded fuel at the county airports because the Board of Supervisors does not want leaded fuel to be consumed to the extent possible at county airports. So I think I kind of answered that. Yeah.
All right, next up we have Joel Williams.
Yeah, I see this, Joel. I don't want you to take. I'm not really managing this endangerment piece. It's being so. I don't think they're drafting an endangerment letter, I probably shouldn't speak too far out of turn. This is being coordinated by our county counsel's office, and they are working with a law foundation, and I don't know the name of it. I honestly don't. And they're working together with some nonprofits. I think a lot of times these EPA things, at least this is my limited experience, is the idea is to get a lot of people to join your petition, other agencies. And I think that these petitions aren't usually done in a vacuum by just one agency. So, but I really can't speak to the details of that. But that is being worked on actively by the county counsel's office now.
Okay. And I had another question.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it was about the what price will be charged for the fuel, or is the county going to sell that at their cost, or are they going to mark it up for profit? Or?
Well, we're gonna mark it up, but I don't think we're not trying to mark it up, much. The purchase of we're not really ready to enter into a long-term contract with Swift. We're negotiating that right now. How's that? Whether or not we have a long-term contract with Swift. We're also talking to another company called General Aviation Modifications Incorporated that has a 100 octane fuel that actually one of our pilots at Reid-Hillview is going to be using as part of their final testing. So I'll just tell you that at Watsonville, they're selling Swift fuel for 20 cents over UL 94. And I don't know how much they're subsidizing that. So I can't tell you the price yet. It'll be marked up, but it should be competitive within $1, I'd say, of the UL, within $1 of 100 low lead. That's our goal.
You.
Yeah.
All right, next is Michael McDonald.
I see. Yeah, so this is, I'm reading these questions so I can read it out loud. Can you talk about the difference in what the BACMed test is and what Jacobs engineering will test? So Jacobs is going to take soil samples. The BACMed test is an air sampler well, let me just say differently. BACMed has to test all of our fuel tanks. Well, sorry, let me say it differently again. We have to test our fuel tanks to transfer ownership, and we have to provide those tests to the Bay Area Air Quality Management District as part of the certification of the fuel tank required by that agency to transfer ownership. We also have to get permits from the Bay Area Air Quality Management District to operate the fueling operation. BACMed also has an air monitor on the airport that tests the air for lead. That's 2 BACMed touch points there. Jacobs Engineering is going to do soil sampling at both of our airports. They're going to do a grid pattern and take soil samples and take them to a lab and test the airport soil for lead.
Okay, next is Danny Garza. Go ahead, Danny.
My questions were answered, Juan. I appreciate it.
Oh, perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Bud Beecham.
Yeah, I can read Bud's question. I think it's easier than having them take the microphone each time.
Sure.
So Bud said, will the new FBO leases have a higher rate? Yes, the county's proposing about 3 times the original rates. Now remember that those old leases had lower rates, but the owners of those leases built the buildings. So there's always a trade-off when you negotiate a lease. But at this point, with 30-day leases, we're proposing increases in the FBO's rents. So that was Bud Beecham's. I could just read the next one, Danny, if you, excuse me, Juan, if you'd like me to.
Sure, thank you for also reading the name so that
Yeah,
people know who it
yeah,
is.
that might be easier because I have it right in front of me now.
Okay,
Okay, this one is from Roy Hallstein. And a month-to-month rent for FBO means county can kick them out with 1 month's notice. That does not seem fair. That may be true. However, that is the direction of the Board of Supervisors. I don't think the county has any plans to kick anybody out. That has never been the way that we have dealt with the tenants there. But what it does mean is that if the airport closes on short notice, we have the flexibility of not being tied into a long-term lease. So that was Roy's question. Steve Rank, will the county offer both full and self-service fueling? Yeah, so we will be offering full and self-service fueling. We plan on having fuel trucks. I can't tell you the hours of operation yet. I can't tell you that level of detail. My expectation of the airport staff is that there won't be any loss of kind of loss of convenience for the airport. That's not right. So I don't know the hours of operation, but we will have full and self. Okay, so now Henry Jessel again. And the question is, would that measure on Santa Clara County assuming control over fuel mean that ADA and TWA would discontinue their own fuel sales, or would it just be the self-serve pump and San Jose Fuel Company? So I don't know who AWA and TWA are. Oh, that was already answered. Yeah, there's 4 fuel tanks on site. The county would have unleaded in 3 of them and probably have jet fuel in the 4th tank. And the other fuel providers at the airport will no longer be able to sell fuel. Again, this one, Randy Raruka. How can there be an engagement finding airport will be lead free? The airport will not be lead free. The airport will hopefully, and we planning on not selling lead. Oh, aerodynamic, ADA, and TWA trade winds. Now, trade winds doesn't sell fuel. Trade winds does not have a fuel tank. They buy all their fuel from. Ruby, which is the corner parcel. But aerodynamic will their tank will revert to county ownership on January 1st, and we hope that they can convert to unleaded before then, because their flight school is going to need to convert to unleaded for convenience, because they won't be able to self-fuel at a flight school. And Dave R says, if you put unleaded fuel sale limit at the airport, I mean, yeah, lead would hopefully significantly be reduced at the airport, but the airport would not be lead free. Michael McDonald, if the FAA says you need to carry, will you do it? I can't answer that question, Michael. You know, I think you know more deeply into. There's probably going to be some sort of dispute about the county's decision. Just leave it at that.
And then
So
just for the audience,
yeah.
just for the audience, the question was if the FAA
Oh.
says you need to carry leaded fuel or continue to carry it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't read the question. I'm not as good at it.
I'll read the question that way.
Oh yeah. Okay, so the question was, if the FAA says you need to carry 100, well, they do currently say you need to carry. You can't discriminate against certain aircraft owners. So essentially, there'll probably be some dispute arising out of this decision.
Next is Roy Halston. The elephant in the room is the county wants to close Reid-Hillview Airport. What do the local residents of San Martin think about dumping all the Reid-Hillview Airport traffic into their backyard? And I assume that means flight traffic.
Well, I don't know that. I mean, this is a loaded question. So obviously, the way the question is phrased, just by answering it, I would have to disparage, you know, what are the local residents about dumping? So I don't think it's fair to ask loaded questions, but I will try to answer the question as fairly as I can. We haven't really studied the dispersion of aircraft. There's a demand for flight schools. Certainly the demand also includes flight training from other countries, and there's economic decisions on convenience with the Bay Area. So the true demand, I'm not sure if I know what the true demand is. I don't think it's logical to assume that all flights from Reid-Hillview Airport need to be accommodated, because there are many, many, many people who choose to come to Reid-Hillview Airport to get their education to fly an aircraft. And some of them come from all over the world, and they stay here because it's convenient and economical. And that becomes a question of where the flights truly will disperse. Now, the aircraft owners do have to find a new home for their aircraft. And I don't think it's logical to say that all those aircraft will be going to San Martin, but I don't know. But I don't think it's logical to say. I know for certain that not all of them will go to San Martin.
All right, next question is Henry Jessel. My main issue with the closure is that other airports in the Bay, places like Sacramento Executive, which is in a densely populated area, will likely continue to use leaded avgas. So it seems like we might just be sending the problem elsewhere. Are you working with other municipalities to also change over to unleaded fuels? Also, I had heard that Cessna recently published higher performance aircraft like the Turbo Stationair can use unleaded. So is there any change? The airport can wait out until the transition for general aviation is accomplished.
Yeah, that's a pretty good long question. We've been directed by the Board of Supervisors to work with anybody and everybody that we can on sharing information on our study, where we've already met with, certainly we've met with Watsonville a number of times, and we've also met with Palo Alto. We've met with San Carlos. We've met with Livermore. We've talked to Livermore. I don't think we've talked to Hollister or Hayward. Oh, we've talked to Hayward. So yes, we are talking to all the other airports that are nearby. Certainly we have professional relationships with them, and they keep tabs on what we're doing. I don't really know about Cessna's thing, but I do that higher compression engines generally can't use the 94 octane fuel, but there is a 100 octane fuel that is on the verge of getting approved by a company called GAMI, General Aviation Modifications Incorporated. They're based out of Oklahoma. And we have been in conversations with them as well. So it's possible that the unleaded fuel in the United States for airports will be here sooner rather than later. But I don't have a time frame for that.
Next one is Steve Rank. Has the county made any projections regarding how quickly rents will rise in the communities around the airport?
No. Well, I have not, and I doubt that anybody else at the county has. So I think it'd be better to say it that way.
And I think
Instead of
there's
just
also an
saying,
assumption there. So, so next one is, oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the county's a big place and they have huge departments of housing. And I don't know that anybody hasn't been penciling out those types of things, but we have not. Let's say that.
Okay. Dave R says, by switching to unleaded fuel, you will be reducing the leaded fuel generated by the airplanes by at least 90%. The blood lead levels were not above the average of all of California when including adults and children, and only slightly elevated when looking just at children. If you reduce the lead by 90%, it would drastically lower the blood lead levels. Also, if we do make the switching to unleaded fuel, wouldn't another blood lead level study need to be done?
Yeah, I don't think it's really fair for me to answer that question. I do believe that good science says that if you study something and then you study change, and so good science would indicate that things should constantly be studied, particularly in when systems that you study are undergoing change. So I don't want to speak for Dr. Zaran, who wrote that lead study, but I'm sure that this is something that he'd be interested in.
The next question is John McGowan. Are you worried that eliminating truck service for fuel deliveries will discourage unleaded fuel use as pilots fly a few miles for self-fueling of leaded fuel and save 50 cents per gallon if they can't get fuel delivered to shelters or hangars and have to self-serve?
Yeah, I think, John, maybe I didn't speak clearly. We plan on having truck service for fuel deliveries to hangars. So full service at hangars, delivery of UL 94. Obviously, a pilot can also always fly elsewhere and gas up with 100 low lead. But we plan on having self-serve and full serve delivery on UL 94.
John McGowan asks, are you worried that eliminating truck service for fuel deliveries? Wait, I'm sorry, I just read
But
that.
that's what you just asked, yeah.
Okay, next one. Dave R says, if you think that the airport is such a hazard due to lead, how do you think that the land can be repurposed if there is so much lead?
Well, I don't, there's a lot in that question. I think the Board of Supervisors have directed us to do some things because they commissioned a study that said that children's the level of lead in children's blood was elevated at the airport if they were downwind on busy months, and so relative to the wind, relative to their location, the proximity, and relative to the consumption of fuel at the airport. How do I think the land can be repurposed? I don't really know much about that. We haven't studied any of that. We have done a community process to vision, what the community might be interested in on the airport. Certainly, if there are chemicals present on development sites, there are cleanup procedures for those. And I wouldn't even go much further than that. One important step that we're taking is we are right now going to study the lead levels in the soil.
Okay, Scott Godfrey asks, is there anything happening with the Little League fields or the pumpkin patch area? I noticed holiday businesses happening on the other side of Philly, which seems like it would normally be on airport property.
The FAA sent us a letter telling us that we were violating FAA rules by allowing families to purchase pumpkins and trees near the airport. So we will we will not allow holiday sales due to the federal government's insistence that that is not an approved use. We've also notified the Little League that they can no longer play at the airport, which is completely appropriate considering the lead finding.
So the Little League needs to move, and I'm just wondering if the county is facilitating that.
Well,
Although this
I
is
don't.
the direction of the FAA, right? It's not the county, it's FAA.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Little League's been out there over 50 years, so our records indicate that the Little League's been on site for 50 years. The FAA claims that the Little League is an unapproved use, but it appears that the Little League has been on site longer than the FAA had a process for approving non-aviation uses. But that's neither here nor there. I can't imagine that the county would move the Little League without providing assistance, but that's not really something that I'm working on.
Oh, got it.
It's important for me to make sure that we notify the Little League and Supervisor Chavez's office that the Little League can no longer be on the airport.
Okay, Dave R asks or says, you say that you still need to close the airport because you can't limit the very small amount of traffic coming to Reid-Hillview Airport. However, I think you need to do a study to prove that this very limited traffic would contribute to any significant blood lead levels increases.
Yeah, I didn't say that I need to close the airport because I'm not closing the airport. That's really not what the board has been telling us to do. And I didn't say it was because you can't limit. What I did say, and I'm not trying to parse words here, is that it's impossible under today's environment to run a lead-free airport. And if you read the County Board of Supervisors direction extremely carefully, and I can actually put that up anytime you'd like, we can read through the direction that the Board of Supervisors gave to the staff that I'm implementing. And it said, seek any and all methods to eliminate lead from the airport, including possible early closure. And that is exactly what we're doing.
Okay, next is Guadalupe Rosales. For those flight schools that have not converted, what is the expected deadline for conversions?
Well, I don't believe that they can even operate into January 1st without converting their aircraft. So because there will no longer be readily available leaded fuel at the airport, and the nature of the business is they need frequent and easily available fuel. So even though I can't say for certain, I think it's physically impossible for any flight school to operate at Reid-Hillview on January 1st without being unleaded.
Dave R says, legally, the airport is to remain open until 2031. How much money will we be wasting making a legal fight to close the airport early?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know if it's a waste of money either, because I don't know the money you spend is dependent on what you value. So I don't know.
John McGowan says, okay. Dave R says, what if the FAA approves 100 unleaded fuel before the airport closes? Would the airport still need to be closed, considering that this approval of 100 unleaded would significantly reduce what would already be a limited amount of traffic that needed the 100? Ooh.
Hey, I mean, I think what he's saying here is that if the United States, the whole country can kind of convert to unleaded fuel, does the airport still need to be closed? That's really a matter of question for the board. And right now, they're focused on closure, and they were given opportunity to evaluate the lead study. And I think that if circumstances change, that anything is possible, but I don't know.
Henry Jessel asks, has San Jose State University made any statements on what will happen to their professional flight program during airport closure?
No, during airport. No, I don't think they're interested in continuing. So San Jose State has, an aviation program of which just, one of the options for their students is to have professional flight. So they have to operate their aviation program within the limits of the services that are available. And they probably have some decisions to make, just like everybody else does.
Next one is Roy Halstein. What if studies indicate little or no lead content change is realized after this change to unleaded? What will the county do then? I don't know if you.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, this is really more up the scientists' alley about, lead.
Dave R says all of this talk about closing the airport and you don't even have an approved plan of what to do with the airport once it is closed. Don't you think the people should know absolutely what the land will be used for before you close it? The people might not like what you replace it with. They should know before.
Well, I think that that's a challenge that we've made clear if you participated in the visioning process, Dave. We made it clear that doing land planning too far in advance is kind of not an effective effort, because land planning is about things that are happening right now. The county values are to engage the community as much as possible and as frequently as possible, and those are our values too. I think we're in a dynamic situation here, and if the airport were to close early, there probably needs to be a pause to figure out exactly what should go there. I think that the land planning should be done concurrent with the opportunity to redevelop the land. And I don't see the date for that opportunity yet set in stone. So, but I do know that the county is all of our values are about working with the community. So that'll happen.
Okay, next, Norma Zuniga. With the airport pending closure, has the county or supervisors considered hindering the future of drone transportation, such as drone delivery, traveling via drone vehicles that are being tested now in several other airports? San Jose's economic future will be greatly impacted should we lose the airport.
I mean, San Jose, has a lot of its economic future tied to Mineta. The existence of the airport does have effect on the surrounding community. For instance, Eastridge, as one example, has height and occupancy restrictions. So I think San Jose would be better to answer what the economic kind of impacts would be from something like that.
Okay, Randy Raruka, if the endangerment assertion is airplanes can still fly in with leaded fuel, has the county done a study to quantify the number of such planes? Since many of the takeoffs and landings at Reid-Hillview Airport are due to local flight schools that will convert to unleaded fuel, the overall lead exposure should be significantly reduced and the endangerment assertion rendered mute.
So yeah, let me. The endangerment assertion is not about Reid-Hillview Airport, from what I understand, and I'm not versed in this stuff. What the Board of Supervisors asked us to do was petition the United States Environmental Protection Agency to make an endangerment finding that leaded aviation fuel, is dangerous. And I don't even know how deep it goes into that, but this is about a nationwide decision whereby the US EPA, just like they did with automobiles, gets into the regulation business on leaded aviation fuel. So it's kind of this is a national issue, not a Reid-Hillview issue.
Roy Halstein asks, San Jose International has no room or capacity for general aviation aircraft. They kicked them all out several years ago. Again, where are these airplane operations going to go?
Well, again, I think I kind of answered that. San Jose did close their general aviation runway about 15 years ago, and has removed most of the FBOs in favor of the very expensive FBOs. So San Jose has made decisions about general aviation, And ultimately, like I said, I think there is study that needs to be done on where aircraft are going to go. How's that?
Okay, and then we're at the last question, which is, second to last. Michael McDonald asked if he could share audio and video. Go ahead. Please do keep it under a minute. We can't hear you if you're speaking, Michael. Okay, let's do Dave R's question first. Dave R says an incomplete blood level study was done due to the fact that the blood level study did not take into account the actual flight path of the aircraft traffic. There really is no way to correlate blood lead level in children if you don't even know if the aircraft was anywhere near the airport when the blood lead level test was done. Now that the unleaded fuel is being mandated, a new blood lead level study needs to be done.
Fair enough. I've read the report, and it's probably some questions for the scientists too.
Okay, Michael, did you want to ask your question?
Yeah, sorry about that. So Eric, can you talk a little bit about Part 77 and what happens to the FAA Part 77 height restrictions when Reid-Hillview goes away? Can tall buildings be built in the area?
Oh, so Michael, so you're asking me about tall buildings you mean on Reid-Hillview Airport?
Yeah, so right now, the surrounding area is protected by Part 77. So the FAA restricts the height of buildings so that, buildings and airplanes aren't close to each other. So when the airport goes, there's no Part 77 height limitation around, in the community. So does that mean
generally buildings are restricted by height by the zoning code of the community. So right now there is kind of another height limit that's caused by an airport, right? So, but there's a zoning code. I mean, in this area of San Jose and like in the single family houses, nothing can be higher than 35 feet. At Reid-Hillview, I don't know their zoning, but their zoning's probably 50. I'm sorry, not at Reid-Hillview, at Eastridge. Eastridge is probably like 50, but I don't know their zoning. But ultimately, whatever gets created out here, if the airport were to close, is going to be subject to the local jurisdiction and kind of a strict planning process. And that process is going to include the uses on site, the size, the shape, maybe even so far as the colors and the materials that the buildings are constructed out of.
Okay, well, I want to thank everybody for their questions tonight. I want to thank Harry Freitas for taking the time to answer them. And I want to wish everybody a great night. Thank you. Goodbye.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Good night.